If you can do this one thing that literally takes 5 minutes to implement, your life is going to change rapidly. But if you can't sit and watch a quick video on how to manage your brain to completely transform your life, then I'm not really sure anything that I say can really help you. So focus up for just a few minutes. Let's rock. All right, we're going to get into dopamine a little bit, but first let's talk about why you should care. And mainly, the thing here is that if you clicked on this video, I assume you're the type of person who wants to do something, pretty exceptional, something that's better than average, I guess you would call it. The thing is that to be able to do things like this, to be able to avoid all the pitfalls that the average person falls into, then you're going to have to figure out a way to control your mind enough, to control your actions and the things you do on a daily basis enough to be able to survive and make it through. Because a lot of running a business and a lot of improving yourself as a person is to being able to delay gratification, right? We've all heard this stuff before with dopamine detoxes and stuff like that. I'm not necessarily saying that you should get that extreme with it, but first, let's talk about delayed gratification and why it is necessary. So the thing with delayed gratification is that pretty much being successful in business in general is a mechanism of delayed gratification. Everyone wants a quick win. Everyone wants, they want to put in $5 and get $10 back right away. But that's just not really how it works. The biggest businesses and the most successful businesses are built because someone worked for a very long time on something. Maybe they failed multiple times at something and they had to learn from their mistakes, but they worked for a very long time on something, and then it paid off in the long run. Now, at that time, whenever they were putting in a lot of work and they were getting no reward, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to do something without having any positive reinforcement. There's no feedback that's like saying, hey, you're on the right track, you're getting some reward for what you're doing. Our bodies naturally look for a chemical reward because that's how our system works. That's how we know that we're on the right track. We're doing something that's good for our survival. So we have to figure out how to control this system as best as we can, which leads into the second point, which is that if you're going down this journey, you're going to have to do hard things. And being able to control this system will make hard things feel easy. They won't be easy at first. It's definitely something you're going to have to get used to, and you're going to have to train your mind and your body and this system to be able to handle. But eventually doing hard things will be like a game to you. It'll be like whenever you're like, let's say you play video games, and a lot of people can get addicted to video games. The reason for that is because the video game is designed specifically to hack your dopaminergic system. You're getting a reward feedback loop, a positive reinforcement loop all throughout while you're playing the game. So and it's very intense, right? Now, you might not realize it because maybe you played video games your entire life and it's just something you're used to. But whenever you get rid of huge dopaminergic spikes, and we'll get into what this means later on, whenever you get rid of that, the hard things, the things that you think are work, the things that people don't want to do will become easy, and they will be more like a game to you because you will get micro rewards no matter what you're doing. And that's kind of one of the big cheat codes with being successful in building a business is you have to figure out how to make it feel like a game to you. You have to figure out how to make it interesting. And the last reason you should care is that pretty much anyone who has done something great has utilized managing this system, right? So whether they realize it or not, they were managing the system to an extent. I mean, a lot of people don't realize all the mechanics behind it and how the chemicals actually work in your brain, but that doesn't really matter. As long as you understand what you need to do to be able to accomplish what you want to do, then that's all you need. So before we get into dopamine again, let's also talk about a little bit of what you probably currently do. So the average person probably wakes up and starts their day with checking their phone. And of course, your phone is designed to hack your dopaminergic system from all the social media apps, TikTok, Instagram, swiping up and down. You get some novelty every time you go to that next video. You get something that's mildly interesting, something that draws your attention. They're all designed to hack your dopamine system. What else do? You probably eat a sugary breakfast. I do know a lot of people don't eat breakfast at all, and that's kind of besides the point. You will eat something high carb, high fat at some point. Obviously, this isn't everyone. I'm not speaking to everyone listening, but this is something else that definitely hacks your dopaminergic system. Let's say you get a little later in the day and you're listening to loud music on the way to work. Of course, music is working on your dopaminergic system. Again, not saying this is wrong or anything. This is just things. I'm just giving you a list of things that you currently do that heavily affect this system so you can kind of understand where we're going. And also what I was kind of talking about with breakfast, you'll eat a high carb or high fat lunch. And I'm sure you've noticed this before. Whenever you eat something that's very, very high carb for lunch or even for breakfast, you'll get a crash after, right? You'll get a spike of energy at first. And then, like, let's say you eat a big sandwich with a lot of bread or something, then you kind of feel, like shit, like a few minutes later. And, if you're trying to get stuff done throughout the day, that's probably not the best thing, because if you're tired, you feel like you need to take a nap, then you're not going to be focused and you're not going to be able to get what you need to do done. So what else might you do throughout the day? We talked about it before, but let's say, you're done with your lunch. So now you want to scroll through TikTok or Instagram. And again, like I said, this is all about novelty. This is all about seeing something interesting. It's designed to make you stay on the platform. It's so you could get that next quick hit of dopamine. And we can keep going with this. You might go home and have a pretty bad dinner, which does the same thing, but it's not as bad for you as if you did a breakfast or a lunch, because you're probably mostly done with your work by this point. But also you might go home and you might watch Netflix, or you might watch Netflix at work, which is even worse, or when you're supposed to be working. Or you might watch YouTube. You might binge watch a whole bunch of YouTube videos. And, I'm not saying that I don't do any of these things. Of course I do. But these are just things that you should know are playing off of that system. And also, if you're really naughty, you might watch porn. You might do various versions of drugs. And, I'm not talking about just the illegal drugs. Of course, you might smoke weed every once in a while. Now, of course, you could drink alcohol, which is, of course, a drug. Even things like caffeine are also drugs that play off the dopaminergic system. Nicotine, that's big. Not necessarily smoking, but if you vape or use those pouches or whatever, you might be getting a huge dopamine spike out of that. Again, I'm not saying you should quit doing any of this completely. I'm just saying that these are things that work on that system for you to be aware of. So now that we've kind of gone over that, let's just kind of briefly get into what dopamine actually is. First, let's give it a quick little Google so we can get a good definition. Dopamine is a type of neurotransmitter and hormone. It plays a role in many important body functions, including movement, memory, and pleasurable reward and motivation. High or low levels of dopamine are associated with several mental health or neurological diseases. Yep. So I'm not going to go all Andrew Huberman on you and go all deep dive into the neurochemistry of all this stuff. I would love to, but this is kind of out of the scope of this video. We're going to keep it nice, short, and sweet for just the things you understand. But dopamine, whenever you do any of these things that we just listed above, and there's also some other ones, of course, but whenever you do them, there's a feeling, there's a sensation that you experience. And if you pay attention while you're doing these things, you might start to kind of understand what that feels like. And whenever you're in a very high dopamine state and whenever you're in a very low dopamine state. So to kind of try to put words to what that feeling is and to help you kind of pay attention to it, let's talk about what being in a high dopamine state actually means. Well, your high dopamine state and keep in mind, I don't necessarily mean this across the board, but in these states, you will probably experience a collection of these different feelings. All right. So you'll be focused, because dopamine is very important for focus. Also, you'll be motivated, because dopamine is trying to get you to do something. It's like it is part of your reward mechanism, which is why they call it the pleasure chemical, because the body is supposed to experience pleasure whenever it does something that nature wants it to do. So, obviously sex, like nature wants you to reproduce. So watching porn and stuff like that is clearly very stimulating to the brain. It's very pleasurable to the brain because it's trying to get your body to do something. And it also leads into motivation. That's why you're motivated, because nature wants you to do whatever the item is. So, of course, eating high sugar, high fat foods. Now, of course, we have plenty of food now. So it's not like we're at risk of starvation, so even though this mechanism is supposed to help us as a survival mechanism, it actually makes us less healthy because we're eating foods that are not very good for us. And of course, the food companies will modify their foods to make them as addictive as possible, to make them, as high sugar, high carb, high fat as they can, so that they make us want to keep eating them over and over again. It's just hacking your dopaminergic system. Another way to think about dopamine is whenever you see something that your nature deems as important. It wants you to focus on this thing, right? So if you see an attractive girl go by, because to you that is very important, you want to reproduce. Well, nature wants you to reproduce. Your focus is moved to that thing. It could also be food, or it could be something on TV. It could be something that you're just interested in. That's another thing. It creates interest, which is, it's kind of similar to importance, because whatever you deem important is generally what you'll be interested in, assuming that it's something that puts you in a high dopamine state. So if you want to think about what the opposite of a high dopamine state is you'll just think about the opposite of these things that we just listed here. So you'll be unfocused, you'll be unmotivated, you will not be in a very pleasurable state. Things around you will seem less important because it's in comparison to what you just did or what you just experienced. That's the way dopamine works. You have these spikes where the thing that you're doing at that current moment is deemed very important to the body. And then if the thing that you go to do after that is not as important, then it's always in comparison to the thing that you did before. So, for example, if you go to lunch and you eat a whole bunch of high carb things, like let's say you eat a huge sandwich, maybe you have some ice cream afterwards or whatever, and then you try to go get back to work after that, your body is like, what are you doing? Like, we just got all this food. We just got all these calories. Now you need to go sleep, go lay down and rest. You did your work for the day. You don't need to do anything else. So again, that's a little bit of why you shouldn't be doing high dopamine things early in the day whenever you want to be getting things done. And to be clear, you cannot have the dopamine peak without the crash. It's going to happen. And the only thing you can do is wait for your levels of dopamine to come back up, because it's not like you just have no dopamine throughout the day and then right when you do one of these things I listed, you get a huge spike of dopamine. You have a baseline level of dopamine, and that's where you sit throughout the day until you start releasing some of it. And if you release a lot of it, then you're going to have a crash, and then you're going to have to wait to come back up to baseline to feel what most people call as normal. This is how addictions get started, because people will they'll do drugs or, whatever it is, and it'll shoot up their dopamine. But then, within, an hour or however long the drug lasts and releases that amount of dopamine, they'll crash and they'll feel terrible. They don't feel like themselves. They don't feel like they can really do anything. They don't feel good. So they'll do the drug again. I mean, and this applies to all things. Like, don't get me wrong. You can get addicted to way more things than just drugs. Many people are addicted to their phone. Many people are addicted to bad foods. I mean, trust me, like, I understand it's not just drugs. And this is really why it's so easy to fall for dopamine traps. Keep in mind, like we were kind of talking about before, almost everything around you in your environment is designed to play off of this system. Everything, so from the websites you go on to your social media, the things you check on your phone, all the foods. Whenever you go into like a convenience store and you just look around, look at all the colors and look at all the things that are so attractive to you. It makes you things that jump out at you, and everything in there is high sugar or high carb, high fat stuff that like is really bad for you. It's almost like you're walking into a pharmacy other than a convenience store. So keep in mind, you just have to be mindful of this, and you have to just be aware of all the things around you that are trying to basically get into your head so that, they can get money out of you. That's basically the end goal, right? And before we get into the solution, if you struggle with stuff like this and you want to make big transformations in your life, check out the link below. I'm offering free one-on-one calls, but spots are limited, so don't wait. Get in there now. So that's good. We learned all this, but what exactly is the solution to this problem? Well, we just kind of talked about a lot of the artificial ways of modulating the system that companies are trying to, make you buy more of their products and stuff like that. A lot of these artificial mechanisms that are not, they're not natural, are obviously a lot more intense than the natural ones. And that's kind of the reason that you want to at least avoid these early in the day, or, maybe, kind of try to get rid of as much of these as you can. But there's also natural things that play off your dopamine too. So like working is something that gives you a natural dopamine release because you feel like you're progressing towards something. You feel like you're accomplishing a goal. So, and of course that's like a reward mechanism thing. The thing is that accomplishing a work goal is just not going to compare to porn. It's just not. It's not even close. I mean, a porn might be a 10 times release of dopamine. So if you go on one of the naughty websites and you watch a porn video and then you try to go get some work done, it's probably just not going to go well for you. And to kind of keep playing off that point, there are many things in your life that you can switch your, let's say if you have addictions, or if you have to get a dopamine release somehow. You can't just be flatlined throughout the entire day. I don't think there's really anyone that's like that. there are natural ways to switch your dopaminergic releases to. So there's things like exercising. Exercising actually releases quite a bit of dopamine, especially hard exercising. Like if you have a really hard workout in the gym, a really hard lift, and you really tear up your muscles, well, then you're probably going to get a pretty decent release of endorphins and dopamine. Also, whenever you, like, they call it runner's high, where you get like a high whenever you run for quite a while, that's a dopamine release also. It's also releasing other neurochemicals, but in this video, we're just talking about dopamine. And, it would be beneficial to you to switch over some of these artificial ways that you get your dopamine fix to some of the more natural ways. Now, I'm not saying, completely go monk mode and, you just work, exercise all day, don't eat anything but protein. I'm not saying that, but it would benefit you to at least switch over some of them. So like exercising once a day is definitely going to be good for you. Maybe going for a long walk, maybe lifting some weights. It's definitely going to be good for you physically, and it's going to be good to manage your dopamine system. But the main thing I want you to focus on is this concept called dopamine loading. And the reason why I want you to focus on this is because I don't think it's really reasonable to ask someone to just completely go monk mode to get rid of all the things that they enjoy in their life and switch them to working and exercising all the time. So this really actually works better. And I started doing this years ago without even really kind of realizing it. I was just, changing things around and didn't realize that I was working on my dopaminergic system doing this. But what you want to do is you basically want to shift all of your big dopamine releasing things to later in the day after you get whatever you need to get done. And even this is going to be tough for most people. This is why most people can't really do anything great, because they're just so used to their normal system. They don't like change. A lot of people just immediately wake up and check their phone. That's what they do. And they're just kind of getting themselves off to a bad start before they even really start the day. And I can't speak for anyone else, but I can just kind of tell you what I do throughout the day to give you an example to maybe help you decide how you're going to modify your day to do this. So first of all, I wake up and immediately I go outside and get some sun. It resets the circadian rhythm. It helps you go to sleep at the next night. It just gives you a whole bunch of health benefits that I don't need to get into right now. But if the sun's out, it takes you 2 to 5 minutes. It doesn't take any time. My phone is nowhere in sight at this point. I don't even sleep with my phone in my room. So I don't even have a chance to check my phone whenever I wake up. So I wake up, I go right outside, stay out there for a couple minutes. And I come inside, I do my morningly hygiene things, brush my teeth, whatever, do those things, maybe take a shower. And after that, I come to my desk and start working on whatever I need to work on for the day. I have not opened my phone at this point. I have not watched a YouTube video. I've not listened to music. The most dopaminergic thing that I did was take a shower, maybe. Like, water hitting my body was the biggest dopamine release I've gotten so far. So then I'll work for a little while, and then once it's about, around noon, I'll go to the gym. Now this is still, I haven't eaten anything. I haven't checked my phone. Although now that I'm going to the gym, I'm going to bring my phone with me. I'm going to bring some headphones, and I am going to listen to some music because I want to have a good workout, and that's one of the things that I enjoy a lot. So I am going to start getting my first little bit of a big dopamine spike here, especially because you're combining the workout with the music. So, and it's loud music too, I'll admit. Like, I'm not listening to classical music or anything like that to go lift weights. I want to get a good workout in. So around noon, I go to the gym, lift weights, come back, and then that's when I have my lunch. And my lunch is usually a pound of like ground meat. That's it. Like, cause I'm trying to get in protein for the day. It's either a pound of ground meat or a steak or some type of protein source like that, maybe some eggs. But I get lunch in, and then whenever I'm done with lunch, I go back to my desk and we start working again. And I'll work until, on some days, about 5 o'clock or so, I'll go for a run or maybe even a long walk. Some days it just depends on the day. And you can say I get a little dopamine out of that, which, okay, that's fine. But other than that, I've just been getting, like, my baseline dopamine has just been from working throughout the day. Then come home, take a shower if I'm real sweaty, and then I'll go eat dinner. Dinner is usually going to be, it's still not like massively high carb, but there's going to be some carbs in dinner because I'm not saying that you can't do ketosis, which means you just eat fat and protein, you don't eat any carbs. But whenever I eat a few carbs, at least like 50 grams of carbs or something, it definitely facilitates going to sleep later on in the night. So I think it's beneficial for that. I'm not saying you have to do that or whatever, but just take that for what it is. So I eat dinner, usually still high protein, maybe a little bit more carbs, maybe a little bit more fats in this meal or whatever, because I've got the bulk of my work done for the day. I got the hardest things I needed to do done for the day. But then after dinner, I might watch, something on TV while I'm eating dinner. But other than that, eat dinner, do that, then go back to my desk, maybe work on, this is whenever I usually work on more creative things. Like it's only for a couple hours, maybe 2 or 3 hours. And this is when I'm working on things that they don't really require a huge amount of focus because it is later in the day. There is more dopamine that has been released. I'm not going to be able to focus and work as hard as I did before. But I still want to get some things done because, I mean, like I said earlier, it's kind of like a game to me at this point. Once you really figure the system out, it's kind of like whenever you're not working, you feel like you're not progressing in the game, in the game. And I'll start winding down. And, I said I watch some TV whenever I eat before, but that's literally like the only TV I really ever watch. Other than that, I'm watching YouTube. Like I'm sure most of you like watching YouTube. I like learning things. I like, following, I like keeping up with the people that, I follow and that I learn a lot from. So I'll probably watch a few YouTube videos during this time when I'm winding down, and then it's time to go to sleep. And then we do it all over again the next day. And obviously you don't have to be completely religious with this. I do this pretty much every day. Obviously there are some weekends where I have other things planned, or, just days in general where I have other things planned and other things that I need to do. And like, I'm not going to be on this perfect exact schedule where I eat at the exact same time every single day, but it is something to shoot for. It's something to get yourself in a rhythm of doing so that you get used to it, because most people struggle with the things that we just talked about, whether they realize it's about dopamine or not. So if you need help, check out the link below. It's free for now. And if you got value out of this video, then subscribe for more. That's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching.